Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Coach Sark, the Texas Longhorns go into Ann Arbor and, for lack of better terms, just make a statement against the defending national champs. And many of y'all know I'm a Michigan fan. I got to give Texas, all their flowers. You look at Texas, Texas came into the big house. And I think my biggest takeaway of that football game was they beat Michigan the exact same way Michigan beat a lot of teams in 2023, and that was controlling the time possession, controlling the line of scrimmage. And I think the biggest takeaway, if you are a Texas fan, is this Texas team is really dangerous because I think they can win in multiple ways. I think there were a lot of, national media analysts asking the question, in Texas kind of play one of those barroom fight type of games? Texas showed that they can not only play that kind of game, they can win that kind of game against what I still think is one of the better teams in the country. And if Texas wants to play a shootout, they can certainly win in that fashion as well. Really complete form performance for this Texas program. I think it really makes you reevaluate where kind of Texas sits within the SEC. I think kind of asserting themselves as that legitimate national title contender in the SEC. Quinn Ewers, I thought, looked phenomenal, specifically on third down. Want to get into a couple of different storylines that I have in my notes. We're going to talk both Texas and Michigan, and we're going to dive into, I think, this game from both the Texas and Michigan standpoint a little bit later down the road as well. But before we get into it, just want to say thank you to you guys. It was a blast talking this game all week long. The Texas fans, y'all showed a ton of support. Y'all know I'm a Michigan fan, but we tried to talk about this game as unbiased as we could. You guys always gave a ton of input in the comments section, so appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into this one. Let's start on the offensive side of the football where, I think my two biggest takeaways, and I think my biggest takeaway probably, is that Quinn Ewers is seemingly taking that next step. You look at this Michigan defense, I still think it's a really good defense, but when you go up against the Texas offense with Quinn Ewers playing that level of football, it's really hard to beat that kind of team. I think the biggest thing you saw from Quinn Ewers that you wanted to see more of throughout his first 2 years at Texas, being a little bit more twitchy in the pocket, being able to extend plays, keep his eyes downfield. Michigan did a decent job kind of muddying the pocket. And I think heading into the game, Texas or Michigan wasn't all that concerned about Quinn Ewers extending plays and getting outside the pocket. That should have been definitely something that Michigan should have been a little bit more concerned with. You look at a lot of the big plays that were created early in this football game, it had to do with Quinn Ewers getting outside the pocket, keeping his eyes downfield, giving those talented wide receivers just a little bit more time to find some separation and space, and then obviously delivering really clean football. I think the second storyline is, this Texas offensive line is damn good, one of the best in the country, at least in my opinion. I think from both a talent standpoint, like I think they have really good offensive linemen, but I think even more importantly, one of my takeaways was the communication was outstanding. I mean, one of the things that has made Michigan's defense so hard to deal with for opposing offenses is all the exotic and creative looks in terms of how Michigan likes to bring pressure, putting 7, 8 guys along the line of scrimmage. You're not really sure who's coming. And a lot of times offensive linemen will just blow protections and let guys come clean into the backfield. Not only does this Texas offensive line have what I think is legitimate NFL talent, we kind of talked about that earlier in the season, but you can tell that a lot of these guys have played a lot of football, but more particularly a lot of football together. And you got to give Coach Sark a ton of credit. Like he knew this Texas team was going into the SEC. He invested heavily on the high school recruiting trail the last couple of years to get this kind of offensive line. And you see a lot of offensive lines across the country really struggle because they have so many new pieces that are trying to get built through the transfer portal. You can tell this is an offensive line that has played a lot of football together. They were on the same page consistently and did a really nice job against Michigan's pass rush. That one is going to challenge you from the different looks that they give you. But I think more importantly, I mean, Josiah Stewart, Derek Moore, those are NFL caliber edge rushers on the outside, Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant on the inside. I thought Texas did a phenomenal job picking up Michigan. And that was one of the things we said kind of going into this game was there's not a lot of teams in the country that I think can block up Michigan. I think Texas is one of them, and they certainly did that on Saturday afternoon. Jarrett Gibson at the running back spot, I think he's really good. Gunnar Helm, you look at Texas, it was a very complete performance from the quarterbacks, from the offensive line, from the pass catchers. Really, really good job. And you look at the Michigan defense, I think that battle between Wink Martindale and Coach Sark in terms of that cat and mouse game where, hey, Michigan's going to try to bring a lot of pressure. They're going to play fast, aggressive downhill. Can Coach Sark get them their eyes in the wrong place? Can you create a little bit of misdirection? I think Coach Sark certainly won the play calling game in terms of Michigan's clearly at the linebacker spot, just to kind of step slow getting to the football. And when you're step slow against the Texas team that has a lot of team speed on the offensive side of the football, you get a performance like Texas just put on. Now, going to the defensive side of the football, I think the biggest takeaway you have is one, going into this game, we knew Michigan was kind of one dimensional. At least we thought they were one dimensional, right? And that kind of turned out to be true in this football game. I think the biggest problem you have with this Michigan offense is, yes, Michigan wants to run the football. That is very clear. But if you want to run the football that much, you got to have a quarterback. And I think just as importantly, wide receivers that can win vertically. And if teams want to start putting their safeties into the box, do you have guys that can punish defenses down the field? Davis Warren doesn't seem to be that kind of quarterback, but I think just as important, like outside of Colston Loveland, who are going to be the guys for Michigan to step up attacking the deeper third? You know, last year you had J.J. McCarthy slinging the rock, but you also had guys like Cornelius Johnson and Roman Wilson. Davis Warren obviously a step back in terms of a passer, but I think they also are taking a significant step back in terms of who their playmakers are on the outside. Biggest takeaways from this Texas defense: one, the edge rusher position is going to be good. And I think there was a lot of national media talk about Texas and replacing guys like Murphy and Tavondre Sweat. And we said, yeah, I don't think you can replace those kind of guys. They were elite difference makers for Texas last year. That being said, we think they're better at the edge spot, and they were whooping Michigan at the offensive tackle spot pretty much all game. You look at Colin Simmons; he's going to be a guy that he might not play a ton early. He's going to continue to play a lot of football, and he's going to become a very good edge rusher, I believe, in this year for Texas. You look at other guys, Barron Sorrell, Trey Moore. I mean, they have guys on the edge that I think are significantly better football players than what Texas had last year. So, yeah, maybe they take a step back in terms of the interior defensive line that I thought played very good today anyways. I think they're better at the edge rusher spot, and you certainly saw that against offensive tackles that Michigan throughout fall camp felt pretty good at. And so Texas on the front seven, I think our defensive line, I should say, I think you're feeling really good about. Anthony Hill is going to be an all SEC, all American caliber linebacker. We kind of knew that heading in. I think the last takeaway is the secondary seems to be much improved. Having a guy like Andrew Makuba back there, the experience that he brings, massive. The cornerbacks seemingly have taken a step in the right direction. That was Texas's kind of big bugaboo last year, was kind of giving up some of those explosive plays on defense last year. They had an elite front seven, were extremely hard to run the football against, really good pass rush. But when they went up against teams like Michael Penix, they were susceptible to some deeper third shots. Michigan wasn't necessarily going to be a team that challenged Texas all that much in the deeper third. That being said, Texas did their job in the secondary. And so you look at this game and say, one, the questions that we had about Michigan heading into this football game are certainly very pressing. We were kind of right. A lot of you guys were right in the comment section about the questions we had. And then for Texas, I look at Texas and say, what do you need to check to be a national championship contender? I think a really good culture that Coach Sark has implemented with Texas. One of the better quarterbacks in the country, elite offensive line play, and a really good defense. I think this is a Texas team that is checking a lot of boxes. They are a complete roster. Now, you look at that Texas performance and say, where were the holes? How was Michigan going to even plan on moving the football? Because this Texas team from top to bottom, it's a really good football team. And so for Texas, you kind of just feel really good about where this team is going, specifically heading into the SEC. And for Michigan, yeah, you're going to get by a lot of the teams on your schedule playing the way you played against Fresno State and playing the way you played today. You're not going to get by teams like Texas, Oregon, and Ohio State. Kind of what we said last weekend. We'll see if Michigan makes any adjustments. You didn't see that much out of Alex Orji in this football game. Davis Warren obviously was not great. We'll see some adjustments that Michigan made. And I think one of the bigger last kind of storylines I have is you can tell this is a Texas team that has played a lot of big football together. Now I think Michigan, we're replacing 10 out of 11 starters on the offensive side of football. You certainly saw that play out. Texas, Texas fans, congratulations on the win. Very good football team. For the Michigan fans, we are obviously going to talk a lot about what we just saw Saturday afternoon. Appreciate you guys rocking with it again. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.